Okay, everybody, we're getting started right now. Welcome to another Oozle Media webinar. We're happy to bring you the latest in online marketing for our for-profit schools, or should I say tax-paying institutions. We always try to bring helpful information, stuff that you can listen and take back to your schools and implement right away and have success. We not only talk about online marketing, social media, but you know, our last webinar we had Lightheart Sanders and Associates, a CPA firm who specializes in helping with for-profit schools. And today we have an admissions panel webinar that I'm super excited about. We have three awesome guests. I want to thank them for joining us. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to ask some tough questions. We're going to see how they perform. And then we're going to get some questions from you after we're all done. We'll open it up to all the attendees to ask questions to these three fine individuals. I'm going to, before I get started, just as a reminder, these webinars are recorded and we send them out within a week after for everybody to replay if you didn't get a chance to view it, or you want to you know, laugh at some jokes again. So here we go. I'm going to introduce our admissions panelists. My name is Chris Linford, CEO of Oozle Media. Today we have with us Linda Huynh. Say hi, Linda. Wave. Everybody knows who you are.
Hi guys. Hello. Okay,
Linda has worked in admissions for a lot of years. She started with a nonprofit school and moving to cosmetology schools, including Avalon and Collectiv Academy. Linda came from a sales and customer service background, managing MAC Cosmetics for almost 8 years, which took her to San Francisco, where she lived for a few years. So we're all jealous of that. So thanks for being with us, Linda.
Thank you.
Next I'm going to introduce Stacey Peters. Stacey, you want to wave? There we go.
Hello.
Stacey is from the Fillet of Wyoming, which is the town of Laramie.
Yes.
She's lived in.
You're not too far from me.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Well, miss the mountains. Tell them hi for me.
Yes, she lived in Laramie, but she's also lived in South Dakota, Nebraska, and now she lives in Kansas.
Yes.
Oh. So she is a licensed cosmetologist in all 4 states. She graduated from a cosmetology school in Wyoming with her associate's degree. She then proceeded with her education at Zenon International Academy in 2004 for the Educators Program. Stacey has previous experience as a salon manager and stylist, and she was an educator for Matrix.
Yes.
One of Stacey's main passion is education. Stacey has had the privilege to work with many industry mentors over the years, including Gino Stampora and Douglas Cox.
Doug Cox. He's a motivational speaker.
Okay, awesome. And Stacey, this is a shout out to AACS, which I currently serve on the board of. She has attended AACS annually now for over 15 plus years. Yeah. She's been in countless training sessions focused on admissions and school prosperity. And Stacey right now is the senior campus director at Crave Beauty Academy.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yep. And check this out. She is celebrating her 18th year with the Academy in November 2020.
Yes.
Awesome. Congrats.
Thank you. I started when I was 12.
I was 6, but okay.
Now, Stacey has pursued a career in the beauty industry through education. She has found that her passion is working with others and watching students grow and achieve success in the industry. Stacey, thank you for being here.
No, my pleasure. Thank you.
Okay. Now we're going to move on. Last but not least.
Yes. I'm waiting for this. I have no idea what he's going to say.
A personal friend of mine, one of the best dudes I know, Rob Thatcher.
Oh.
Oh my God.
You can't keep him quiet. You can't keep him quiet. I don't know. It's weird.
Go get one of your 6 children and put them on the chair back there and just have them nod the whole time.
I'm just thinking about it. They'll work for free too. At least they could do.
No labor laws here.
Nope.
No, not in Utah. Not in Utah where Rob resides.
Yeah. Yep.
Lots of kids. Only one wife, though, correct?
One wife. Mm-hmm. The Utah reference right there.
Yeah. Got to make that distinction. We got to be clear about that. So, okay. The cosmetology industry is a main focus for SalesComm. SalesComm is the company Rob owns. Rob has spoken in almost every major city in the country with almost every major brand in the industry, helping to improve their show rates, ladies and gentlemen. He does as many as 30 trainings a week over the phone and 2 to 3 13-hour in-person trainings a month.
Wow.
He's helped hundreds of admissions and service employees over the years, increasing sales and decreasing their no-show rates as much as 60%. Schools that work with SalesComm.
Hey, I like that. Yes.
So I didn't write this. I think Rob either wrote this or his assistant. Here's the big kicker. Schools that work with SalesComm often see show rates of up to 95% on a regular basis. He continually works on new ways to help each school. This is his life and his passion, everybody. Give it up for Rob Thatcher.
Yay! All of you. That's for everybody this last one. That's for everybody.
Yeah, round of applause.
Yeah, see that?
Okay. All right. Well,
he's got all the little knickknacks over there.
Oh, I do. And I'm going to use more. There's more coming. There's more coming.
I haven't heard the boom for your jokes. I mean, you typically need those.
I know. Yeah, you got to have one. I got it. You got to place it right. Don't make me ruin it.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get into it. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to ask some questions, and then when I'm done asking the questions, we'll open it up to all the attendees. So the first question, I'm going to throw it out, and Linda, it's coming your way.
Oh, all right.
Okay. I think people in admissions, they're always looking for ways to connect with the lead, especially if you're getting no response. What do you do?
Well, and it happens, right? We come across, whether it's a phone call, which I personally love connecting on a phone call because you're able to create more of a relationship with them. But there's tons out there that don't want to, and they just want to text. If you're not getting a response at all, even through text, some ways that I've tried as well is I've started social media for their social media page and also email. Recently, especially during COVID, I've been successful with getting in some sort of contact through email where they start to feel comfortable, and then I'm able to get them on the phone. But it really is trying to be versatile and figuring out what's going to be best for them, even though you don't know who they are. Try different outlets. If they might respond back on social media, but I've had a lot of success even with email, trying to get a hold of them and then getting them on the phone.
Okay, so it sounds like your main goal is to get them on the phone to create that relationship.
Yes, absolutely, because I think you're able to ask the right questions and create more of a relationship when you get on the phone. It's really hard to depict through text message, through social media messaging, and even through email, personality, tone-wise. So absolutely, I think it's always wise to try to get them on the phone to create that relationship and that trust.
Right, cool. Stacey or Rob, anything to add to that, or should we move on to the next question?
I agree 100%. I love that. Yep, totally.
The only thing that I would add to that is if you're having a hard time getting a hold of them, try an alternate phone number. So if you're utilizing a point of sale that has the same standard number, we have I call it our burner school phone. It's a cell phone that has a different number, and we'll just text and just say, "What's up?" And they'll reply back, and then you can start the conversation like, "Hey, this is so-and-so, and I've been having a hard time getting a hold of you. How you been?" And not come at it as a sales approach at first, but then just trying to get their attention. So that's worked well.
That's great.
Cool.
I agree.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, Stacey, here we go. How long should we be working leads? 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 100 days? What do you think?
I know it seems frustrating, and I tell the admissions team, work them until they hang up on you and they tell you not to call. Because when you plant that seed, you can continue to move them 30, 60, 90 days out, But 90 days from now, something in my life may change where I found myself dislocated from my job, or, maybe, life is happening and it's going to work for me to go to school. Don't forget about me. Don't give up on me. Keep me in your circle and follow back. I don't ever give up on a lead until they physically say, stop calling. Constantly keep that connection, because you never know when you're going to catch them, and then you got them and you didn't just write them off because they didn't sign up in the first 30 days, or when they came in and toured. Everybody's different as far as when it's going to be right for them to be at school.
Yeah, you just never know. We see that in marketing too. Like, somebody can fill out a form and want information, and then you can't get a hold of them, and then 90 days later, they'll fill out another form and then they're ready.
Yep,
and I liked your
definitely.
language there, how you said, I'm not going to bug them until they tell me not to bug them anymore. You say, I'm not going to give up on them.
Right.
Yeah, I like that.
Anything
to add?
Yeah, let me throw something out at that. One of the things you got to be really careful of too, because I agree 100% with Stacey. Here's the thing. You got to be really careful about not getting butt hurt when they are maybe a little cold to you. Don't burn a bridge, because to Stacey's point, the reality is that sometimes people aren't ready in that moment. If you're rude to them or cold to them or indifferent, you burn a bridge. So you try to call them back in, a month or two, and you're in a little better mood and they're in a little better mood. They still don't like you because you're rude to them last time you talked to them. So be very careful. Think about every time is the first time, right? When you reach out to them, reset your opinion of them, because if you don't, again, why burn a bridge? You've already put all this effort into it. At the end of the day, we may as well get an enrollment out of it if indeed, they turned out to be a good fit for the school. So yeah, don't get butt hurt.
That's perfect, Rob.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I love Rob's language too, butt hurt.
That's a term. You got look it up, Chris. First time I've ever used that term, to be fair.
Okay, well, now we're going to go to butt hurt for a question.
Okay.
How do you control the conversation while still making the potential student feel like their questions were answered, right? Because I feel like the admissions calls that I've listened to, they want to fire away questions, but as the admissions rep on the phone, you need to control that conversation. So how do you feel like, how do you help them feel like, they're being listened to, their questions are being answered? How do you control that conversation?
Well, first of all, I think we got to establish how important it is to make the other person feel valued and loved and respected, right? And so that's why that's why that's a great question, right? Is because we don't realize the majority of the people that we're working with every day are blues, right? We call them blues. They make decisions based on emotion. They do not make decisions based on logic. Most of them. Some do, most don't. They're artists. Artists make decisions based on emotion. And so we have to, the importance of creating a specific emotion on the phone is really important, because again, if they feel negative, the outcome's going to be negative. And so what we want to do is make them feel valued the entire time. And I got to separate something. I got to make something really clear here too. This isn't to manipulate them. Like I'm not saying to do these things to manipulate them into coming in. If you're doing it for those reasons, you're just a jerk and you're a bad person, and you should go work on a computer where you don't deal with people all day, right? Just go away from the humans, because you should love and care about them, right? You should respect them. You should be interested in them. And so how do you make them feel like that? Well, everything that they say needs to be validated, right? And some of the training that we do have 5 different validation types. The least of which is to say something like, oh, that's awesome, right? Or perfect, or cool, right? Great, right? On a positive. On a negative, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. With more sincerity than that, because no one's actually saying anything to me right now negative. But if they were saying a sad story, the least you could do is say, I'm so sorry to hear that. That's the least that you could do. The most you could do is what we call empathic listening or empathetic listening, heard of both ways. And that is just to reflect the feeling, right? To extract the feeling, figure out what it is they're trying to say to you, and label the feeling and push it back at them. So if they're saying something like, gosh, I always wanted to go to school, but it's just, I just have never taken that next step. Okay, so it sounds like maybe, sounds like maybe it's just kind of always been intimidating. Intimidating is the feeling, that's the label, and I'm pushing, reflecting back at them. That makes them feel loved and respected while keeping you in control of the conversation, right? You get to ask the questions. He or she who's asking the questions controls the conversation. If you're just answering questions on the phone, you're not doing your job, but you can get a robot to do that. And they're a lot cheaper than you are. So you got to make sure, remember, take a step back and be a person over the phone, but be in control of the call and show the other person that you care.
Great. Stacey, Linda, anything to add to that?
No, he said it right on.
I think I was going to say,
That was a lot of
a
words.
man of many words. I think you got it right.
I'll say less words next time, I swear. I'll limit it.
No, it's
just nod.
perfect. I think it's, and I agree 100%. Having that connect, if they wanted an automated response, we'd have automated
Exactly.
options on the phone.
Yep.
Press 1 for tuition costs, press 2 for start dates, so on and so forth. They're calling to make a connection with people, and they're wanting to connect to you. You just have to figure out what that niche is to get in and connect with them. And the better that connection, the better you're going to have that relationship, and at least have them come in and show up for their tour because they have that connection. They're going to feel more guilty about not showing up by making that connection, just like you would with your own, your stylist or, even a doctor or whatever. You kind of feel like, oh, I can't not show them because they're going to be a little upset, and then you call and explain or whatever. But they'll have that mutual respect, and then you start to build that relationship, which I do believe also, not only in the admission aspect, but the completion of the program.
Mm-hmm.
If you have that solid foundation from the very beginning, and you work on it throughout, it's a good thing.
Start right, finish right, right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And by the way, and Linda, I don't know if you had something to say. I wanted to throw in one thing to Stacey. Sorry, and go ahead. And then did you have something?
No, you're good.
Okay, I was going to say something. Here's the little secret too. If it's not just about them, right? Like we look at it and say, well, they should enroll. That's why we're doing this. But if you're not connecting with people all day, you hate your job. And that's when your job starts to become redundant and you become sort of feeling like, man, this is a dead end. I hate this. It's not the job. It's you. You're not connecting with people. You're built to connect with people. Your brain is built. You're a social animal. And so if you're not out there connecting with people, don't be surprised when you hate your job, And so it works both ways. When you give what Chris always says, you get what you give, right? And that's the same thing. If you give that relationship, you're going to get it back, and you're going to feel better about yourself and your job and what you accomplished at the end of the day. And that is important because that translates into the next phone call. So these relationships is a big thing.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask a question to the three of you, and any one of you can answer if you'd like. So, Stacey, you mentioned. Oh, who was that?
Somebody's cold.
I think it was Linda. Linda's screen is freezing. She may be cold too.
Okay, could go either way.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the group. So, Stacey, you mentioned tuition.
Sorry, I'm freezing.
It's okay. You're we can hear you a little bit. So.
Yeah.
Let's talk about tuition.
Sure.
Somebody brings up tuition costs on the phone. How do you handle it? What's the best way to handle it?
I'm going to smile as I say this, only because I'm going to glance over at Rob. No. No, honestly, the way to answer that is for a program, it's going to depend on their familiarity with FAFSA. Their out-of-pocket expense is going to depend on what financial aid will cover and not cover. And then you ask, are you familiar with a FAFSA? Are you familiar with that process? I don't want to hear over the phone that something's going to cost $16,000. When I've had things break at my house and I call a repairman and they're like, oh, you're looking at about $4,000 or whatever. And you have to put it into life simulations. You're hearing that and you're going, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay for that? Like, where am I going to get the money? And you start to have that freak out moment. And then we all know that freak out moments cause, all the blood to leave our head. We forget what we're even talking about. And that's the one thing that we're focused on is how we're going to pay for it. So if you can just calm them down and say, hey, you know what? We have a great business officer. She can help you with your FAFSA. We'll get that going. And then let's discuss that, and then try and flip the conversation to get them talking about why they want to be in the industry again. And they may cycle back around to it. You don't want to seem like shady, like you're not wanting to tell them, but just let them know, hey, I'm just doing, we can figure out what you're going to qualify for and, you know, everything, and then we'll move forward. So just, we go at it that way.
Oh, go ahead. See, I keep trying to, Linda, are you unfrozen? Yeah, she looks unfrozen.
She looks unfrozen.
It's half right now, so I can catch bits and pieces. I'm hoping
Okay.
it just keeps going.
We can hear you. Is there anything you wanted to add to that, Linda, as far as when somebody brings up tuition on the phone?
No,
How do you handle that?
I think Stacey, he hit it right on the spot. You know, it's redirecting it and asking how familiar they are with that process, because the amount does scare people. Hearing that large amount there, it terrifies them. So why put that fear into them? We know that it's going to be, you know, it's going to cost money, but we can help them with that. So by deterring that and asking them about the financial aid process and walking them through that this is possible without giving that amount, I think is a great way to approach it, for sure.
Yeah. Can I gotta tell you guys, can I take just a quick story? Because I know that there's somebody out there right now. Let me see how many people we have. We have 54 people. Okay. Out of 54 people, there's probably 10, maybe 15 right now that are listening to this that are not convinced that you shouldn't give price. In other words, they're sitting going, yeah, it's probably okay. It's not going to hurt. We should never hide that. No, you're right. You shouldn't hide it. But that doesn't necessarily mean you need to give it, right? So I got to tell you just a quick story, Chris. Can I have 1.5 minutes to tell a story?
Yes.
All right, here we go. All right, you said no, I was going to do it anyway, but I just wanted to make it feel more proper. All right, so here's what happened. I was sitting at lunch with a group of people. There were 3 or 4 of us, and the lady, one of the ladies that I was sitting at lunch with, ran a factory. It was one of my other businesses, and long story short, she ran this factory, right? And we were looking at buying some things from this factory. And she asked, we were talking, and I told her I did trainings for cosmetology schools, and she says to me, she goes, oh, cosmetology schools, you mean like, and she named this school that was in her area. And I said, oh yeah. She goes, just like that. And she goes, oh, my daughter was going to go to that school. And I said, that's a great school. Why didn't she go? And she goes, she called up. I convinced her. I got her to get the courage up. She's like 19 at the time, her daughter. And she goes, I convinced her, I got her courage up, and she called in and she asked how much it was, and they told her $22,000, and she said, okay, thanks, bye. And I said, well, what do you mean? She said, okay, thanks, bye. She goes, well, that was it. She just asked the price, and she goes, it scared her so much that she never called back. And I go, well, wait a minute, was that just recently? She goes, no, it was 2 years ago. And I said, okay, wait. So let me get this straight. They gave her the price, and it scared her so much that she just never called again. I said, what? And I laughed at her, and she and I were friends at this point. And I said, well, you're a bad mom. You should have convinced her. And she laughed, and she goes, how dare, call me a bad mom. We laughed about it. And I said, no, why didn't you convince her? She goes, I tried. She goes, I begged her. She said, I even told her I would help her with some of it and that she may be able to get some financial aid. And she goes, but it just felt so overwhelming that she goes, she ran from it. And she goes, and I've been convincing her ever since. She said she's in this job, and I don't remember what she was doing, but she hated it. She hated this job. She felt stuck in it because some ding dong over the phone goes, yeah, it's $22,000, and scared her off, and smashed her dream. Ding dong. Do I have one of those? I don't know if I have. No, that's not the right. No, that's close. Yeah, that'll work. So you guys have to realize that it's not just hiding the football. There's a purpose. There's a reason why they need to come in, see the school, meet you, and love the school before you start throwing out big old huge numbers that they feel like they can't afford. The value to them is not $16,000 or $22,000 when they haven't seen the school and really seen what you teach and really understand what they're getting out of that investment. For heaven's sakes, it's a disservice to throw out a big old price and go, well, I hope they like this. You got to stop. Take a deep breath. Realize that the relationship's more important. The experience is more important. All right, I took 2 minutes. Sorry, Chris, that's done. I'm done. That's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No, this is good. This is great discussion. Linda, you're not freezing, so I'm going to go to you with a question.
Yep.
Seems like things are going well. Let's see. Okay, so somebody's coming in for a tour. How do we get the lead to commit to enrollment on the spot?
Well, and I think this goes back to what Rob was saying about having like more empathetic listening, right? You're listening to what their dreams are, what has stopped them before from completing this, and what could stop them from completing this. making sure that you're having a good dialogue with them and creating that relationship, making sure that you're listening and reassuring them that this is a great idea. This is something that they wanted to do. And by repeating what they're saying, what they want to do out of this, like how they're going to get themselves there, is going to help get them to enroll into the school. I do not let my student leave without giving me a commitment into enrolling, because they're here for a reason. They're finding out more information for a reason. So by making sure that you're, just having that dialogue with them, having that empathetic listening where you're hearing their concerns and you're saying it back to them, saying back to what their goals are and that they can do this. They can. And we're just here to help them with that.
Love it.
Cool. Anything to add, Rob or Stacey? I mean, we can add to or take from disagreements.
It's perfect.
Yeah, I agree.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Okay, Stacey. Let's say you're in not a small town, but maybe some would consider it to be a small town, and there's a lot of schools there, a lot of competition, some great schools, right? Like,
wait a minute. This sounds like because it's perfect. Can you, Stacey? How many schools? I mean, you can. Sorry, keep going. I'm interrupting. Everybody's laughing. It's so true.
No, and this is perfect for Stacey, right? Like, I feel like Kansas probably has more beauty schools than any other state in the union.
Yeah.
You're in a competitive market space,
Definitely.
and other schools, and you're friends with these people, and they're good people, and they know you. But everybody wants the enrollment. You're looking for specific enrollments. Like, how do you kind of promote your academy? What do you say? What's your strategy with so much competition?
Sure. And just to touch on that real quick, I mean, Wichita is 500,000 and we have 4 or 5 cosmetology schools here. So the biggest thing that we have to be the best version of us. That's our focal point. We are all in this for the common sake of enrolling students and producing, professionals and having them be successful. But when it all comes down to it, you have to be 100% vested in your own academy and focus 100% on what your core values are, and that they're present when the applicant comes in, because you have to. And then when you're talking about it, it's kind of like restaurants, so each restaurant has a different vibe to it. And some vibes are going to be better for other patrons than it's going to be for another. And so when you're connecting with that person coming in, it's not what we do better. This is how we do this. And this is a good for you because of this. Or what are your goals? Because we have X, Y, and Z. So, I am huge. We never speak ill of any other school. We always focus on what we do right and what our core values are for you as a professional. And I would, I think that that's true with all of us, to have that professional respect, because they'll reflect on that. They will. If you were dogging on another school, they're going to come back and think, oh, well, they were talking about it that way, So just focusing on yourself and what you do right and talking to the student about that.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, obviously, like, what makes you unique, and then you also touched on, making it about the student too, and kind of what their goals are and how they reflect your own, and how you can help them be successful.
Yes.
I like that. Anything to add, Rob or Linda? Thank you, Stacey.
No, that was great, and I completely agree. Especially working at multiple different schools. I think that's the biggest thing, is just making sure that you're talking about the elevation of where you're currently at and what stands out from different education standpoints.
Definitely.
Let me throw, you never know who you're talking to, right? So if you think you're going to dog another school, what a fool you are. What a fool you are to sit and say, oh yeah, that school down the road sucks. Oh, okay. In fact, I learned that the hard way. One day I was selling Yellow Pages and I said that about the competitor. And after the lady had sat and ripped on the competitor for like 20 minutes, I sat and listened to her say all these negative things. And I was like, oh yeah, they're awful. Yeah, they're ripping people off. This was my competitor, this Yellow Page sales book at the time, right? He's like, oh yeah. And she goes, oh, how dare you? My husband's worked for them for 20 years. Get out of my office. That really happened. I was like, are you kidding? You just said it for 20 minutes. They were awful. What are you talking? I couldn't believe it. I have since to this day, I've never ripped on a competitor because you don't know who you're talking about or talking to. So you just don't do it. You just say positive things. I love the comparison of restaurants. It's a great thing. What's the vibe? What kind of vibe are you looking for? Everybody has their ups and their positives and negatives. It's perfect.
Hey, Robert, I'm coming to you. Let's talk about validation and how important it is in our discussions, strategies. Go for it.
Okay, so validations. I talked earlier. I gave you the first one, the least effective, right? Number one, least effective. So we call that exclamation point validation. And then the most effective is empathetic or empathic listening, right? And so in between, there are a couple in between, because remember there's five. So we did the first and the last. So number two is to do nothing more than just mirror. Right? So they say to you, gosh, ever since I was little and I was cutting Barbie's hair. Okay, so it sounds like ever since you were little, you were cutting Barbie's hair, right? That's called mirroring. You're just mirroring back in order to validate. And actually it's very effective, to be honest with you, especially inside of negotiations, mirroring is very effective. It doesn't seem effective in the moment. Like when you're doing it, you sort of feel like, you're like, how can this possibly be working? But the other person's so interested with themselves, they're like, oh yeah, let me tell you more. And so they just keep talking, right? So again, it's not to manipulate, it is to say that it just feels weird when you're doing it. And then as you do it more, you get more comfortable. The next one is rephrasing. You just rephrase, you give new, you just put in your own words what they've said to you, right? So they say, ever since I was little, I always cut Barbie's hair. Okay, so it sounds like when you were a little kid, you used to cut all your doll's hair, right? So you're just replacing words for your own words, right? So that's number three. And number four is a self-share. Okay. Self-share is when they say, ever since I was little, I've loved to cut Barbie's hair. You go, oh my gosh, me too. I used to love to cut Barbie's hair. Now I want to make sure that when you say this, you do not lie about it. It's not, that's stupid. It's ridiculous to go, well, I'm going to tell them I used to cut Barbie's hair when I really didn't. Well, let's not be bad people. Let's not manipulate. If you didn't cut Barbie's hair, that it wasn't something that you did, you can actually say, oh, my mom would have killed me. I never did that because my mom would have just killed me, right? And you can connect over something that you didn't do, but they did, and that's okay. You would never want to use a why question, right? When you're like, well, why did you do that? That's accusatory, right? So instead you go, oh my gosh, wait, tell me more. So ever since you were little, you used to cut Barbie's hair? Yes, right? And I know, by the way, you hear that all the time, but they haven't explained that to everybody. It may be their first time verbalizing that. And so you need to make sure that you act like it's the first time for them and sort of treasure that memory with them. And so as you're doing that and you validate, you're going to find that it's a lot easier to create and build that relationship, right? And by the way, when I do trainings, I don't call you stupid or dumb. I only do it right now because you're not actually a person. You're 54 people listening to me, and all of you are offended. And you'll sleep better tonight now that you've been offended. That's what I do.
Well, I'd love to restate everything you just said, but I want to ask Stacey and Linda if they want to add anything to that.
No, I think that's very valid what Ram is saying, because that's how I end up closing and enrolling my students as well, is reiterating in my own words and repeating what they had said, what their goals are, and what their passion is going to bring them. So I think it's very valid through the entire conversation to have that flow with them to keep that relationship going.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Great stuff. Okay, Linda, we're coming back to you.
Yes.
How do you deal with leads that are concerned about COVID and it deters them from starting?
That's actually great. Someone just posted a comment. Yeah, someone just posted a comment about COVID as well. It's Nikki from in Tacoma. But this is great because I've had these challenges for a couple students that have decided to push off their start date or whatnot because of COVID, and just making sure that we're reiterating with what our safety precautions and procedures are between not only the clients, but our students and staff. Letting them know those procedures are protocol and having them see that as well. I actually FaceTimed one of the students that actually ended up pushing her start date 2 months later because of COVID. Her family was really reluctant, and by all means, validate that. Do not shut them down. It's their own feelings. Everyone's going to be different on a different spectrum at this point with COVID. So validating that and making sure that they're understanding and they are aware of the procedures that you guys are holding within the school And then also, it doesn't hurt either to let them know the numbers of cases, whether it's within the school, within the surroundings, any clients. And we've been very lucky and very fortunate because of our safety procedures that we haven't had any cases in the school.
Lucky.
Right.
Such a weird time.
Good. Well, we're living in it though, you know, and I think we're doing our best to adapt and to help people feel safe. And I think the numbers are showing that it's not spreading around in schools, and it's a safe place to be, and we need to make sure that it's safe and people feel comfortable. But I like what you said as far as like, if people have real concerns, those are real concerns, and we need to validate those, right? And make sure we aren't offending anybody and keeping everybody safe. Stacey, anything to add to that? What are you guys doing in your school?
We're doing, the same thing. As far as, if they are leery about coming in or doing a tour, we'll do a virtual tour. And it's really important to have your admissions advisor walk through with you and mimic that tour before you go live with those and really practice them. And, but also showing them what precautions we are taking. Again, to agree with Linda, we have 0 cases. I mean, we've been great. We are like overly cautious. We're still taking temperatures. We, all wear our masks. We sanitize the school literally every 20 minutes. We walk around with disinfectant and sanitize. But on the aspect of the student, during distance education, because it was so new to us as schools, this is something that we have never done. We set up our classroom, obviously with our educators and doing their distance education we used Zoom as our platform. We would show our tours what that classroom looked like so that they would understand and appreciate what they would be enrolling into if they so chose to do so. So having that additional comfort level as well of what they were seeing, what they were going to be engaging in, and how it's going to be. So thankfully, we were only on distance education for 2 months. So, and then we were able to come back to the academy. So we've been very fortunate.
Yeah. I mean, some states are totally different.
Yes.
I mean, yeah. Anything to add, Rob, Linda?
No, I'm definitely not the expert on that. I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
No, I think we were fortunate as well to be just over and done with by, for 2 months or so and back into schooling. But I think it's nice to know too that schools are set up for it, so that way you can continue to, keep your hours and do education. So that way you're not falling behind and graduating on time. So
definitely,
just know it's just for a little bit of time.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, Stacey, we're going to go to you with the next question.
Okay.
So there's always this thing between marketing and admissions, and marketing says, we're bringing you awesome leads. And you say, no, they suck. They're not enrolling. I can't even get a hold of them. There's always that clash. And sometimes, for us, like 1 month we're working with, a school and they have an admissions rep who says one thing, and then the next month they have a new person in there. Or some schools, they have the same rep and we have a relationship with them and they ask the right questions and they've been there for years. So it seems like, there can be some turnover in the admissions world. Right. As a director, owner, or even as an admissions person, how do we avoid burnout? How do we avoid turnover, transition?
Yeah, it's so true. I've had admissions advisors that 3 to 5 years, and they're like, I'm done. I just can't be told no anymore. And being with the school for a long period of time, I've had others that have stayed for many years, and just maybe decided to either go back behind the chair or different life path or whatnot. But burnout in admissions is, you have to first recognize when it's starting to happen. And I want to go back to what you had said, Chris, about, or maybe it was Rob, with connecting with people. And if you're not doing that, then you are burnt out and you're not doing your job. This has just become a 9 to 5, get my check. You have to remember why you're here, what the end goal is. And, but in order as a mentor, because that's what the role of directors and owners is, to first notice that, and 2, step in right away. But also with admissions, I think it's really important for them to also wear different hats to keep that because we are creative people, you know, so a very regimented 9, 10, 11, 12 is going to become very mundane for us because we like to switch it up and feel like something is different taking place. But, you know, either being part of your town hall, you're going to, you know, go and be part of a commission or advise or work with, what am I trying to say? Your community, or otherwise join a Toastmaster group. Toastmasters is huge, and actually in the most recent, I don't know if you guys it's the Career Review publication, and it has different articles and whatnot. If you don't, it's a great resource. Actually in this month they talked about how Toastmaster actually will help your admissions advisor with skills, because I'll just name a few. In Toastmasters, and I did that for many years when I was in Omaha, but you have icebreakers. So you're required to do that in Toastmaster, but also that's a skill set that you'll need when you're talking to your future graduate. Or you have your getting to the point, which is your presentation features and things like that. So there's this little graph in there that breaks it down on how that would correlate to the work environment. But I think it's super important to mix things up, you know, to where it doesn't become mundane and constantly they're your heartbeat, your pulse. They should, you know, we have our educational team, and if you have a lead educator or an associate director, that can be their wheelhouse, and to nurture that in that classroom environment and keep that going. But, you know, my primary function is my admissions team and making sure that they're staying motivated, on track, and that they feel loved, because everybody needs to be wanted at work, right? We all need our friends to keep us going. So it's just important to keep that relationship going too.
Yeah. Linda, you're in admissions. Do you want to add to that?
No, I completely agree. What's great about where I'm at with Collectiv Academy is the energy and the vibes between not only the students, but the staff and the owners really make a difference. I can tell you that I absolutely love my job where I'm at. And it also leads me into having, you know, doing a good job, you know, creating these relationships with these students and seeing them graduate too. I think knowing from my aspect, at least, I'm like, hey, I enrolled that person, like that person succeeded. She's, you know, she's graduating, he's graduating. So I think you're right, Stacey. Like you hit it on the head with that for sure.
Okay, great. Rob, do you want to add, or do you want me to get you to your final question?
No, I want to answer one of these questions that have been typed. Can I do that instead of mine?
We're going to get to them.
Right. Fine.
Okay, well, because of that, I'm not asking you the question. Let's just get to questions from the attendees.
Well, I don't want to bully you, but that's a good idea.
Okay, let's do it. So yeah, there have been some questions in the chat. Let's open it up to everybody to chat in your questions. It could be just, you know, we haven't talked about it yet, or you wanted a follow up from something that somebody said. Rob, do you want to pick one and answer it? Read it and answer it?
Yeah, I was looking at that. I actually love this one. I love when people ask it, and I love to experience it when I go on tours with schools. Let me find it here again. I had it set up. So thank you. I completely agree with the competitive discussion. However, people love asking the question. This is from Taryn. And Taryn, I have no idea how to say your last name. So I'm sure I'm the only person to ever not know how to say your last name, but it's beautiful. And should I try? Really? No.
I was going to try it too.
Do you want to try it? Try it, because you yourself, Linda, have a name that is unpronounceable at the end there that I would mess up every time.
I'm going to say, Taryn, your name is Schoutner.
Schoutner.
It's German, for sure, though. It sounds cool. It sounds like, oh, I'm in your face. I'm going to get this right. Okay, sorry. All right, I got distracted, but I couldn't help it. Okay, Taryn.
Oh, pretend there's no S.
Oh, Zoutner? Zoutner. Ooh, I like it.
Oozle
all right.
Got it.
I like it.
Oh, dang it. I was right. All right, so the question is, people love asking the question, what makes your school better? right? And you said, we do try to talk about what sets our school apart and our advantages in our school without talking about other schools. But many times people want to hear specific differences between your school and other schools. Do you recommend engaging in that? What's the best way to answer this? Ooh, okay. I got the answer. And it's the perfect
Bread
answer.
and butter right here.
Yeah. This is perfect. This is perfect. Okay. So here's the answer. The biggest mistake that you can make in responding to this is listing off the things that you do well. Because here's the reality. You have no clue what they want to hear, right? So that's stupid, right? So you say things, well, we've been around for 50 years. Oh, okay. And they can spin that. They go, well, so you're old. You teach things old school. No, that's not what I mean. And then you go, but we have the best equipment. Oh, well, that sounds expensive. No. That's not what I meant, right? And so you really have no idea what they want to hear. So instead of listing off the wonderful things that make you different, say, there's actually a lot of things that separate us or set us apart. What kind of things are you looking for in a school? You've got to control it and turn it back to them. Once you ask that question, then they list off things. They say, well, I want someone that's been around for a while. I don't want them to go out of business halfway through my education. Great, right? So boom, check. Now, and then you go, okay, cool, what else? But don't answer that. The second biggest mistake you can make is when they're listing things off, right? You've got this momentum, they're answering the question, they start listing things off and you cut them off and you're like, oh yeah, that's all us, all of it. Let me tell you why. That's stupid. That's amateur hour, right? So instead, listen to each one, validate each thing as they say them, and then what you do is start and then talk about each one. So you'd say earlier you mentioned, for example, that it was really important for you to have a school that's going to be around for you, right? So that's great to hear because we've been around for 50 years and we're not going anywhere, right? Boom, and then you go to the next one. But you can tailor the flavors that they like by asking, what flavors do you like? And then not serving them a bunch that they don't like. That's, again, amateur hour. Don't ever do that. And don't just start spewing off things that you think they like when they actually may be working against you. And by the way, they're not listening to you. When you list off all of these things and you're like, oh, let me tell you why we're great. They don't hear you. Just like when you go to a mechanic shop and they're like, well, we've been doing brakes for 30 years. We have the best brakes in the business. You're like, shut up. I don't care. Can you fix my brakes or not? Right? It doesn't really matter. I'm not interested. Right? So anyway, I love that question because it comes back to conversational control and listening to what they want. Good question.
Everybody say hi to Miss Pasley.
There she is.
She was trying to sneak, and then she's going to sneak back out.
She was.
So.
Okay, I think we just got a great question. So here's a school, circling back to the tuition discussion. They don't offer FAFSA, and it seems like once they realize financial aid is not available, they lose the lead. Any good strategies there?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That is a really good one.
Wait, it's a good question. Did everybody get confused? What was the question again?
It was about not offering FAFSA.
Okay, school just asked, wait, so give me the question again. Someone text me during this. I'm saying, go away. I've got better things to do. And I got distracted. I'm not going to lie. That's what happened. Let's just be honest. I'll throw it out there. I told them to go away. Okay, say it again. Do it again.
I think I was a little echoey though. Do I sound better?
You sound great.
Echoey.
And you look great. Okay, go.
They don't offer FAFSA.
And what's the question?
So they don't offer FAFSA, and students who realize, oh, geez, how am I going to pay for this? Any strategies that you suggest?
What do you talk about when they come in for the tour as far as what their payment options would be? Is your tuition price point, are you looking at being able to offer financial aid through accreditation? It would be, they would have to go to an outside source, and unfortunately there aren't, unless their parents have a 529 or something like that set up for college, there aren't going to be any lenders available that would help with that. Maybe show them how they could break down their payments, or if you want to expand on your question a little bit more to where they don't disappear on you, to where you're losing those leads because you don't have financial aid, we can take a look at that.
Let me throw something at you guys on this. Don't be scared of the wolf that you look. Do you know, have you ever been sitting, like, this has happened to me multiple times. I grew up on a farm, right? So there were bugs all over the place, right? And I remember, if you've ever had this happen, like you're laying in bed and you see like a spider on the wall, and you're like, oh, spider. And then you're like, and maybe you're afraid of spiders. I'm not. My wife is terrified of spiders. I don't like water. I have my fears. I'm willing to admit them. Spider's not one. So I'll sit there and I'll look. I've done this before, and I've looked away, and then you look back, and the spider's gone. That spider is so much scarier than the one that you saw, right? You're like, oh crap. And before you know it, you're like, oh, I got something in my neck and my hair. And because you can't see it, it's scarier. If you're dealing with this, the thing you have to realize is that the wolf that you can't see, or the spider that you can't see, is infinitely scarier than the one that you can, right? Measure the teeth on the wolf. Look at the actual, figure out what kind of spider it is, and then it's not as scary. Like, it doesn't even have teeth, or it doesn't even bite. It's not even venomous. And so you have to start to realize, you go, well, gosh, if I don't have financial aid, I can't possibly do this. Well, I don't know. What are your payments? And what were the payments of the school down the road? You better understand those numbers. I just sat with a Windows company. We were training a company on Windows, and they're like, oh, everybody's so much cheaper than us. And I was like, are you sure? And they go, oh yeah, no, we're the most expensive. And I said, okay, well, let's pick a couple. We called a couple of their competitors. Turns out they were cheaper than both of them. But they'd been scared for years. These people had worked there forever. They've been scared for years, and overpriced. They didn't need to be. Now, I get it that you have a disadvantage. And let's be perfectly frank. If you don't have financial aid, that's a disadvantage. But there are ways that you can work it to your advantage. But we have to recognize that it is one. But stop being scared of it. Figure out what your payments are compared to down the street. Figure out a way to get around those things. And often, it's not as big a difference in payment as you think. And then the other thing is why did they come to you anyway? They probably knew you didn't have financial aid. There was a good chance that they knew that. So why did they come to you anyway? Well, maybe that you're more convenient, and that's worth the extra money because they don't want to sit in a car for another hour, depending on where you're at. Figure out why they're there in the first place. But again, recognize it is a disadvantage. You just got to measure the teeth of the wolf before you're scared of it, okay?
Right. There was a question on here. I was just trying to find.
I also wanted to add to Donnie. Have you looked in? Oh, sorry, Stacey.
No, you're fine. I'm still looking.
I wanted to also see if Donnie, if you looked into any local. Oh, thank you, Donnie. Have you looked into any local credit unions that possibly offer student loans? Or maybe even you can work with the local company to see if they can assist with any of that funding. We personally here are working with a credit union that will help out pocket costs for those that don't qualify for financial aid. So.
See, that's awesome.
That's a good point too.
Yep.
There was a question, and I can't find it, but it was from I think a barbering school. About how to organize files, and I just wanted to touch on that for a minute. It's super important for your admissions team. You can organize them by either class starting dates and program, which helps keep them segregated so you know what you're working. But also then for your business office to work with your admissions team to have accountability meetings at least 2 to 3 times a week to touch base on where those files are at and where they're at in the enrollment process. So if you don't have a system like that in place, start off with organizing and getting them in touch, and then the directors need to be involved in that a meeting as well, just to see where your enrollment's at.
No, that's good. Anything to add, Linda? I mean, you working with the CRM and leads and keeping track.
Yeah, and I apologize, mine's cutting out right now, but I do work with the CRM to keep track of my leads as well. And honestly, it really does help when I'm taking notes from each of the leads or each of the tours and moving them into certain buckets to keep track of them. But I will never not contact someone unless they specifically say, don't contact me. Right. I will still continue to do so.
By the way, if anybody, I'm going to say this because I love being controversial. It gets people's attention. If you're an owner or a director right now, specifically an owner, and you're listening to this and you do not have a CRM, I would tell you that you shouldn't be investing money in anything else, including probably even up to the electricity in the building before you get a CRM. You should be putting even the electricity of the building ahead of a CRM. You should have that immediately. There's no excuse for not having it. And I love you dearly, but that was a bad decision. The good news, you can change and be better tomorrow and buy a CRM, and I don't care which one. Just get one and make it effective.
Get one.
Just get one. And by the way, those of you that are learning a CRM or feel like you have a pain in the neck with your CRM, you got to get over it. Use what you got. Do the best you can. There's a bunch of good ones out there, but please use your CRMs. And if you don't have one, owners, get one like right now.
Yeah, thank you. Let me add to that. So if you're on, I think it would be awesome if everybody put what CRM you're using and why you like it, because we get that question all the time. Hey, Oozle, what CRM is the best? What are people using? There's so many options out there, and so many different ways you can customize them. And schools love some schools hate the same one that other schools love. So if you could put which one you're using and why you love it. Also, I think there was a question from my good friend Brenda Sharman. She was wondering, how are enrollments doing across the country? Are they down because of COVID, or are they up, or are they staying the same, or you don't know because you can't open, you can't enroll. So if everybody can utilize the chat for that too. But we have time for one kind of last question, because we're approaching the 60-minute mark. There were a couple questions in there about first appointment to show rates to enrollments and being successful. And so, for example, how to minimize no-shows. How often do you continue to contact a prospective student that no-showed? Let's get into that real quick. What are the strategies there? What's a formula we can follow? Who wants to talk about no-shows?
Yeah, I think honestly that's a great question. But with measurements, how to minimize no-shows, it really is from the beginning of the conversation that you're having with the prospective tour. Are you creating a relationship? Does that person feel connected to you in admissions? That they're just not setting it just to set it. They want to come in, they want to meet you, they want to tour. And so I think from the get-go, having those conversations will minimize that. And then obviously doing a reminder, the day before, the morning of, to make sure that they're aware, because sometimes people actually do forget, will help minimize those no-shows. And how often do you continue to contact a prospective student that no-showed? I'll continue until they tell me stop. The question of it, if there are no-showing multiple times, is a different story. Obviously, I'd let them know, this is the third time that you have not showed to the tour, and that'll be a different conversation, but I will continue until they tell me otherwise.
Right. I agree with Linda 100%. The more conversations you have with them, we go back to the better connection, and they'll feel a little bit more guilty about not showing up, but also to touch back on what she had said about if it's, second, third time, it's like, hey, I just need you to bring in something. Just show me your commitment level. And if you can't even do that, then you aren't vested in this. So it's time for you to, until it's a better time for you to start school, because you have to believe that if they're doing that during that enrollment process, they're going to be doing that during the school process. If you have to hunt them down,
it shows to their commitment.
Most definitely. But if you have somebody that's walking in with their documents in hand and they're ready to sign, and they're ready to go, they're going to rock it through school. But I agree 100% with Melinda. That second, third no-show is a whole nother conversation. It's, and it's not an icy one. It's just like, where are you at really in life? Like, is this really going to work for you right now? Can't even bring me your birth certificate. So, but conversion rates are really, you could have a massive amounts of leads come in. So we have another campus and love them dearly, and they are in a larger city. They have a lot more leads coming in, but us being in a smaller community, our leads may not be as mighty, but we have to look at our conversion rates. How many of our tours are actually showing up for their appointments? How many are turning into enrollments? And you really have to take a step back and analyze that. If you're texting and your tours aren't showing up, it's because you're texting them. You're just an automation on the other side.
Rob hates texting.
Oh my! Wait. I hate texting. I hate texting unto an appointment. Texting's my favorite thing to get a hold of somebody. But oh, Linda, you're so right. I hate texting, making an appointment via text because it's you're looking at a 20-30% reduction in show rate based on that one stupid decision. So yeah, you shouldn't do it. But you should use text message to get a hold of people. There's no better way, right? I'm gonna speak to this nuts and bolts. Okay, which I think is a company also. But let me give you the specific. Let me give you the specifics here on this too, because everything they just said is absolutely brilliant and 1000% I agree with. As far as measuring it, I'm going to tell you this really fast. I'm going to throw a lot of information at you in like 1.5 minutes. Here you go. Here's how to measure no-show rate. Okay. The first thing you need to look at is total number of appointments made. Okay. And then you need to batch it. Okay. In other words, batch it between, you look at the time, like say maybe October 1st and October 31st. And all of those people needed to have some sort of action. So you made you took the phone call. You could have taken the phone call in September, and then you made the appointment for sometime in October, and now it's November. You made it sometime in October, and they either showed, no-showed, canceled, or rescheduled. They had to do one of those 4 things in order to show up in your batch. Okay. And it's really important that you batch. If you don't batch, you're never going to get an accurate number, right? So you have to look at it and say, okay, between this time and this time, I made this many appointments, and out of this many appointments that have already come to pass in some way, shape, or form, again, they no-showed, canceled, rescheduled, or completed, right? So, that's the first thing, batch. Second thing, a cancel or reschedule in advance of the appointment is different than just no-showing you. And I can promise you that it is different, and here's why. Because you go, yeah, but Rob, they didn't come in for that appointment, so I'm just putting it as a no-show. Well, I'm sorry, that's a bad decision. Because if they called in advance and told you they couldn't make it, that means you don't have to call them back, and so you don't have to put more time in to get them rescheduled. They're already rescheduled. It takes on average 8 phone calls to get a hold of somebody to get them rescheduled once they've no-showed you. And by the way, once they've no-showed you, they're likely to do it again. So you have to separate that. There's a difference between show, no-show, cancel, and reschedule. If they call you in advance and say, I can't make it, let's do it another day. Or they call and say, I want to be a nurse instead, pound sand. Good. Well, these people I don't have to call anymore. They're done. They've either rescheduled or they're off my list. And so that's a really big differentiation, right? A no-show or a reschedule from a no-show or a cancel from a no-show. And by the way, I'll put my email right on here right now. And if you guys need, I have an Excel sheet that you can pump this information into, and it'll pump out your percentage, your no-show percentage. Just email it to you, it's no problem. But again, it won't work if you don't batch it. Do not count pending people. Well, Rob, they're scheduled for November 5th, but and I talked to them. No. Either if they did one of those 4 things, they show up in your batch between this time and this time, okay? So really important that you need to measure that. By the way, that's how you determine how well you're doing on the phone. That's your KPI, right? If you go to, how good am I on the phone? Well, what's your show rate? And what is it consistently? That's how you determine how good your show rate is, or how good you are on the phone, is by your show rate. Yeah, KPI. I like it. Yeah, thank you, Linda. See that? KPI. Okay, so that's all I had to say about that. Boom, 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 boom. I was trying to pump some music and I couldn't. I just realized I didn't even know that was there. Yeah, that's nice.
Okay, well, I think this has been a great discussion. I think there's been a lot of really good information shared. I think hopefully a lot of questions have been answered, and that those who have attended have taken something from this, and they'll be able to implement. Again, if you want to get a hold of any of these great people, if you feel comfortable putting your email out there, Stacey and Linda, I know Rob, you have already. Mm-hmm. I want this to be a community where we get together and we help each other. We're here for each other, sharing great information. This isn't the first admissions discussions we've had. I think this is the 3rd one that we've done this year, and we'll continue to do 3 or 4 a year. So I thank you all for being on. Stacey, Linda, Rob, much appreciated. I want to thank everybody who's attended. If your questions